Hi, Sophie!
Hi, Sin.
Hi, everyone! And welcome to the Snack Covenant, episode 257. Today, we're going to talk about Bloodborne's Ashen Blood.
Yeah, this was a Patreon goal, and we just wanted to thank everyone for helping us reach it. Everyone who supported us, it does mean a lot.
Yeah.
It is actually what allows us to do it, in a sense, because, this is not our, quote-unquote job, but having that support does mean that we can sort of do stuff we couldn't do otherwise. Like, it's paid for recording equipment, it's paid for all the animations.
It's paid for takeout food when we don't have
Yeah,
time to
that's
cook.
that's what I was gonna say. That something that I think people might not realize is that you spend so long editing that you often don't have time to do anything else. So you've been buying takeout food with Patreon money, but that's actually it's meant that we're able to get things done faster because less time is spent doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, big shout out and big thank you to everyone for supporting us. It really means a lot.
Yeah.
And Sophie, if people would like to support us on Patreon, where could they find us?
They can go to patreon.com/SinclairLaw and pledge $2 a month for how many other episodes are there now? It's 100.
It's maybe more.
It's something ridiculous.
The only item to talk about the Ashen Blood directly is the Antidote, isn't it?
Yes.
And the Antidote description says, small medicinal tablets that counteract poison, used to treat Ashen Blood, the baffling sickness that ravaged old Yharnam long ago. These tablets only provide short-term relief. The Ashen Blood alignment eventually triggered the spread of the beastly scourge. And to be clear, stuff like Bone Ash set, Ashen Hunter set, even though they have the word Ash in them, it's not the same Ash.
No, but Ashe is kind of a big deal in Bloodborne.
How so?
Because you have, you mentioned, the Bone Ash, and the Ashen Hunter set, and the Marrow Ash.
Mm-hmm.
So Ashe is kind of a big deal in Bloodborne. Ashen Blood is not really related to it, but there's probably something in the fact they called it Ashen Blood.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sophie. And speaking of what's it called, let's move on to our angelic outline. So, Sophie,
Yes, Sin.
what is Ashen Blood called in Japanese?
Ash Blood. Well, blood of ash. I don't know.
Blood of Ash. Interesting. And could you please describe what it looks like?
Well, it looks like your eyes glow red sometimes, and it looks like weird slime comes out of you and gives you poison.
And since we can use the antidote, would you say that the components of Ashen Blood include blood and poison?
What's poison?
Okay, let me ask you a simpler question.
Okay.
What is the molecular structure of Ashen Blood?
Hi, Sophie here. Sin apparently really wants to know the molecular structure of Ashen Blood, and isn't just doing this to annoy me. Well, the molecular structure of metalloprotein hemoglobin is C2952846408332S8Fe4. If we assume wood ashes are mostly calcium carbonate, then that has the chemical formula of CaCO3. Yes, it's content like this that has led to the incredible amount of support we get from our patrons, and massive amounts of apoplectic rage from everyone else. Back to the podcast.
The Ashen Blood, in terms of the game mechanics,
Yeah.
what does it do?
Alright, so let's talk about Old Yharnam. Because Old Yharnam is the first poison area of the game, essentially. There's kind of three. There's Old Yharnam, there's Forbidden Woods, and there's Hintertombs. So the poison in Old Yharnam is the bodily fluids of the beast patients there. So when we talk about Ashen Blood, that's essentially what they're getting at. Everyone's blood in Old Yharnam became sort of sickly and toxic. So as a result, they had to give them the antidotes, and as they say, antidotes are only short term, and then sometime after that, the beast scourge sort of broke out and everyone transformed. So we can assume that the Ashen blood was the result of the healing church messing with the blood of the people in Old Yharnam. So when they talk about it being a mysterious illness, that was probably the result of the healing church seeding the place with beast blood, like a sort of a long-term beast blood abuse.
Mm-hmm.
Symptom is that your blood sort of starts going foul, going toxic.
Mm-hmm.
The way Ashen blood works in game, in terms of a mechanic, is there are two kinds of beast patients. There's ones without hoods and ones with hoods. It's the same model, but according to basically like the game itself, the way that like everything's written out, and this is also in the guide and everything, that the ones with the hoods on are female and the ones without the hoods are male.
Mm-hmm.
The ones with the hoods are the ones that actually do the Ashen blood attack to you. So what they will do is when they strike you, they do poison buildup, and what they can also do is they can grab you and pin you down. And when they have you pinned down, they basically vomit on you. And that vomit, it causes so much poison buildup that I think it's essentially guaranteed you'll get poisoned if they ever vomit on you. Interesting thing about those female beast patients is also they're not frightened of the torch for some reason. The torch and the hunter's torch, if you wave those in front of the regular beast patients, they will run away, but the female ones won't run away from it. And so combined with the way that they're able to like vomit the stuff out, it almost makes it seem like they're possibly a little bit, I don't know if more powerful is the right word, but there's something about them, like they're a little more in control or something.
Mm-hmm.
So there's also another cause of Ashen blood, which is also technically caused by the female beast patients, but they can kind of give it to the other beasts. It's very strange. It's something that only happens with a few of the beast patients in the whole game. I think there's only 3 of them. There's 3. There's 2 in Old Yharnam, 1 in the Old Hunters expansion, and some in Hintertombs. And what will happen is there are these beast patients that are bigger than the others. They're always the female one with the robes. And what will happen is when they see you, instead of immediately attacking you, they will raise their head back and they'll kind of go, and they'll have this huge sort of like banshee wail. And when they do that, all the beasts around them, which is beast patients and also scourge beasts, their eyes will go red and they will develop the poison affliction that the female ones have. They'll be able to poison you. That's temporary. It goes away after a while. So if you've played Bloodborne a lot, you might be thinking to yourself, isn't there a scourge beast in Old Yharnam that does poison damage? Because it's like just round the corner from where you run to the Bloodstarved Beasts arena. But what's actually giving it the poison is that there's one of the larger female beast patients in the alley behind the house. So when she screams, she gives it that buff, and that buff eventually fades away. So the other thing about the female beast patients, the large ones, is that of the 2 that we encounter in Old Yharnam, one of them appears to actually be leading like a congregation. She's standing up the front with the blood behind her, and everyone is like in front of her, almost like she's like the vicar of that church. So again, there's something about them that like puts them above the other beasts, and they seem to, like I said, they seem to have some effect on the other beasts' blood. They seem to be able to pass Ashen blood onto them by doing that shriek. So that's Ashen blood as far as the enemies go. The other source of Ashen blood is the Bloodstarved Beast. Because what the Bloodstarved Beast does is it is constantly, technically sort of bleeding, but if you look at the blood, it's not red blood, it's like brown. It looks like it's gone bad. It's starting to like, what's the term?
Coagulate?
Yeah, okay, yeah, it's starting to coagulate. The blood coming off it, like it doesn't. There's something wrong with it, and the whole point is like it's the blood-starved beast doesn't have any blood in it. So the blood in it is like it doesn't have very much blood in it, or like the blood in it's sort of gone bad. So what the blood-starved beast will do is at a certain hit point threshold, it will do this like screaming thing very similar to what the large female beast patients do. When it does that, it actually gets a poisonous aura around itself, presumably from all like the blood and stuff. And one of the things about the blood-starved beast that is like I'm fairly sure this is entirely deliberate, but I don't really see it talked about, is that it's a deliberate foreshadowing of Vicar Amelia.
Mm-hmm.
If we assume you go to Old Yharnam first, you go to Old Yharnam first and you find the Church of the Good Chalice. And it is a destroyed church, and it has been ruined for a very long time, and there is the chalice on the altar, and then there is like this like sick beast thing in front of it. So when you go to Cathedral Ward and you find Vicar Amelia and she is in front of an altar and she then turns into a beast, it's like, oh, okay. What I saw in Old Yharnam is foreshadowing what is going to happen here. Like something that we've talked about is it looks like initially in some older version of the game, the people of Yharnam were actually going to turn into beasts when the Red Moon descended. That doesn't happen anymore apart from Gilbert. But the thing about Old Yharnam is Old Yharnam sort of fills that in for you anyway. It's like, okay, Old Yharnam now is what the rest of Yharnam is going to be like in the near future because of what they're doing. So the reason I'm bringing this up specifically is that Vicar Amelia kind of buffs herself by doing the same animation. She'll get this sort of aura around her that seems to be coming from her blood, and it makes her stronger. But the Bloodstarved Beast is trying to do that, but its blood is all rotten and disgusting, so it doesn't quite work, and it just gets this aura of like sick, diseased blood around it instead of making itself stronger. Bloodstarved Beast, again, like the female beast patients, it can do a grab attack where it basically just infects you by grabbing you. So yeah, Ashen blood is that. It's like everyone's blood went bad from the beast blood. No one had really seen this sort of thing before because it was something introduced by the Healing Church, and the Healing Church were like, okay. And they decided that they would try to fix it. They used Old Yharnam as a laboratory to see how can we kind of counteract this, and they put the antidotes in them, and like they said, it only offered short-term relief. One of the things about the antidote as well is like it's something that they develop in the research hall as well.
Mm-hmm.
The blood ministers in the research hall who are working there, they all drop the antidote. And the research hall is also where you can see them develop beast blood. So presumably, like, they were infecting people with beast blood, and the antidote was designed to sort of try to counteract that. So when they did it on a larger scale with Old Yharnam, they started bringing the antidote around to try to, like, see what would happen, essentially.
I wonder if the people who worked for the Healing Church took the antidote as a preemptive measure.
They probably did. The other thing that's interesting is that the antidote gets dropped by the crows, and the crows also drop beast blood. And I think the idea there is like they're dropping it because that's what they've been eating. They've been eating corpses that were taking these different things, and it sort of coagulated inside the crow.
Mm-hmm.
God, this is a thing that happens in Dark Souls with rats,
Okay.
where the rats in Dark Souls drop humanity,
Mm-hmm.
and like it's pretty clear that the reason they drop humanity is because they're eating dead bodies, and the bodies have humanity in them. But some people think it's because the rats are people that turned into rats.
Oh.
But no, but I think it's no, that's the diet, and it's the same thing with the crows. Like the crows have antidote and beast blood in them because that's what they're eating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you think it could be like, oh no, my pet crow has been eating all these dead bodies. Better give
Yeah.
him some antidote.
It could be, it could be. Ludwig and his pet crow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm,
Oh.
mm.
And the antidote can be used to treat poison ailment that we get when we go into poisonous swamps.
Yeah, the swamps are those swamps are like the only source of poison in Bloodborne that you can't trace back to blood.
Hmm.
Because like the snakes have poison in them. Okay, they're snakes, but they're also infested with those ticks. And there's all the references to like the snakes eating the beasts. So I think like the poison from the snakes might actually come from that. Like
Okay.
the snakes are infested with all like the same sort of corrupting substances as everyone else is, and like I was gonna say like the swamps and the poison water that we find in the clinic cave and the research hall, but at the same time those pools are all full of dead bodies.
Hmm.
So again, it could just be this is like this water has just gone foul because of the stuff that's dumped in it. So the swamps are really the only thing in the game that you can say like definitively, okay, it probably isn't blood that made this toxic. It's probably just a poison swamp. Um,
Hmm.
so I think it's just for convenience sake.
Hmm. I just had a vision, like a
Yeah,
silly vision,
yeah,
um, where poisonous swamps have existed in Yharnam for a long time.
yeah.
And so, therefore, an antidote to those swamps has existed for a long time as well. You could
Right.
just get it
Yeah,
at the pharmacy. And Lawrence is like, oh no, people's blood is going poisonous. You know what?
yeah.
Let's just go get a bunch of those tablets,
Mm,
glue a new sticker on them,
yeah.
and sell them as our product. What do y'all think?
No, he's changed the formula by like 1% and patented it. It's how this shit works in real life.
Thank you, Sophie. Earlier, you mentioned that Ashe is a big theme in Bloodborne.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Could you please elaborate?
Okay, so there's three other instances of Ashe being important in Bloodborne that are, as far as we can tell, totally unrelated to Ashe and Blood. The first is Dura's set, which is called the Ashen Hunter Garb, and that set is it's grey like ash. It's like a greyish white, and if you look at the description, it says that it is basically painted with ash as this like ceremonial thing that they believe will ward off bad blood, basically. So the ash is like a protective, purifying agent, and if you look at the stats of Dura's set, it has the strongest frenzy resistance of anything in the game other than Eileen's Mask. So there's something about the ash painted on Dura's clothing that makes him very, very unsusceptible to frenzying. But I think it also has quite low beasthood resistance. So again, you're sort of getting a like, well, is maybe Ash and Blood and Ash are somehow connected because
Mm-hmm.
Dura's painted himself with ash, and that's like lowered beasthood somehow.
Yeah, I see
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah. Which is different to like I mentioned Eileen's mask. Eileen's mask is specifically described as like it works because it's like a real plague doctor's mask. It's full of all of these herbs. So the smell from the herbs is like calming you down, which is different to what Dura's doing because he's actually painted himself with ash. The other source of ash is the bone ash hunter set, which you find in the chalices. That is described as it belongs to Fumarians who basically burned themselves up, and they're sort of like a spirit that just inhabits this bone ash armor. It's actually very Dark Souls that you
Hmm.
like burn yourself up and like you live on in the
Yeah.
armor. In English, that's called the bone ash hunter set. In Japanese, it's actually not called that. It's called like basically the charcoal set. The idea being like it's like your charcoal you've burned up. It still mentions ash in the description.
Hmm.
Um, there's like a lot of cut Bloodborne stuff related to immolating bodies. A lot of stuff about like rituals in which people will be burned up, and that is something that's like it looks like over the iterations it got less and less pronounced until it became basically just the Bone Ash Hunters. But like yeah, that's a ash thing. We also know like in general beasts fear fire. So there's probably something in the way that fire is used to dispel beasthood that is
Right.
connected to ashes. Like beasts might like smell ashes and instinctively not want to be near it because they associate ash with fire. There's also finally the bone marrow ash that is from
Yes.
Hemwick, and that is again it's really nothing to do with anything else. It's just the firearms in Bloodborne draw their power from the blood of the user. So if you coat your weapon in this ash stuff, it just basically makes the gun stronger. It works as a medium because it's basically powdered. It's powdered bone marrow, I suppose, but it's like powdered concentrated blood that you. I guess the bone marrow is where blood comes from, so that makes sense. But yeah, it's like I've stuck powdered blood on my gun to make it stronger. So there we go.
Thank you, Sophie.
Yeah, so like basically none of those things are connected. I mean, I actually know because like bone marrow ash comes from Hemwick, and Hemwick's where they burn bodies,
Yeah.
and we know that like Hemwick it's like a place of the old traditions, like
Mm-hmm.
it's closer to Thumerian traditions than Yharnam traditions. So
Yeah.
them burning the bodies is probably like it's like a remnant of when they would burn bodies in Thumaru to like I guess purify them. So
Mm-hmm.
actually
Makes
does make
sense.
it does make sense if you think of them as blood obsessed because it's like okay if we burn the bodies down and then we keep powdered bone marrow
Yeah.
that's sort of like powdered blood in a sense.
Because bone marrow is the thing that makes blood.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you, Sophie.
Thank you, Sin.
Now, I think we covered the where pretty well, generally speaking.
I didn't know this was what where why.
Surprise!
One of Sin's tricks.
So, yeah, I think we covered the where very well,
Yeah.
generally speaking, throughout the
Mm-hmm.
conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But there's one thing I want to ask you about,
Certainly.
and it's a sentence.
Oh.
The Ashen blood alignment eventually triggered the spread of the beastly scourge.
Yeah.
Could you elaborate on that? What does that mean? How accurate is it?
Well, I think what it's referring to is like the Ashen blood is something that happened as a result of everyone's blood being messed with.
Okay.
I think though, like when they talk about your blood is filled with vermin and stuff, like your blood is cursed. I think what happened is the people of old Yharnam's blood, presumably they were all being ministered a lot, or they were being given like we know they were being given beast blood. They might have been being given other stuff that made their blood go bad.
Hmm.
So Ashen blood triggered the beastly scourge because everyone's blood was all disgusting, and then when the red moon hit, they all transformed.
That's what I was getting at because it
Yeah,
seems like in the sentence they're saying the ashen blood is responsible for the scourge.
yeah,
But there's a lot more that's responsible for the scourge, including curses and red
yeah,
moons,
yeah.
which we talked about in many previous podcasts.
Yeah, you know we still haven't done one on Yosefka.
Oh no!
We have to make a pact now, right?
Okay, okay,
January 20, 2022, the
okay,
day before Elden Ring comes out, we'd
okay,
finally do a Yosefka episode.
okay. I'm on board.
Good. Okay.
For people who don't necessarily have the time to listen to 450 episodes of the Snack Covenant, including a 5-hour analysis of Katekyo Hitman Reborn in order
Yeah.
to fully understand the story of Bloodborne,
Yeah.
could you, in 140 characters or less,
Okay.
explain the beastly scourge, what triggers it?
Well, as far as Old Yharnam is concerned, the Red Moon descended over Old Yharnam. This is very weird because the Red Moon seems to be localized, but it seems to be localized like as a very late addition to the story. So the Red Moon seems to descend solely over Old Yharnam, which I guess makes sense because it's like a weird ritual thing. So it descends over Old Yharnam, and that starts triggering sort of like everything to change. It blurs the boundaries of like what people are and what the world is, and because everyone in Old Yharnam was filled with what we're calling Ashen blood, but like all this like beast blood, when it hit, they all transformed. And the Healing Church were not expecting this.
No.
Well, they may have been. I think they were curious about what would happen.
I'm just really curious. What's gonna happen?
Yeah, so when that happened, they sent in the powder kegs to mop it up,
Hmm.
and apparently the powder kegs didn't actually know those were transformed people. They
Yeah,
just
yeah.
knew that there were beasts in Old Yharnam, so they slaughtered them all, and then they came to the realization during this that actually all those beasts were the people of Old Yharnam who had changed, and that's why Dura and Dura's ally are defending it, because it's like an attempt to sort of atone for what they did. And Dura believes the beasts don't pose a threat. And Well, no, this is the thing, because we've made fun of Jura for saying this, because they mean you no harm, and then the first thing that will happen is they'll try to kill you. But
Yeah.
in a sense, he's correct, because they're just there.
They're just chilling. They're doing their
Yeah, they're not
ceremonies. They're
trying to
hanging around.
leave.
No. And they're not attacking each other.
No, they're just asleep mostly. So
Yeah.
like he's correct. Like if you don't trespass and barge into Old Yharnam, the beasts don't pose a threat. You can
Hmm.
ignore them all game. They're not going to make a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, Sophie,
Yes.
the curse of cause.
Okay, so this is kind of confusing because they keep sort of changing, like the exact mechanics of curses and everything is a little vague, but like Kos has cursed the blood of Yharnam, and what she's actually done is she's cursed the blood of the Healing Church. And because the Healing Church, if you think of it actually, if you think of the curse as a disease, which fits with the way Bloodborne sort of is obsessed with like symptoms and causes and things being passed from person to person, basically the Bergenworth murdering cause is like creates that curse. The curse is passed on to the Healing Church because Lawrence is from Bergenworth, and then the Healing Church passed that on to Yharnam through the ministration that they perform on the people of Yharnam. Yharnam's cursed because basically they've allowed the Healing Church in. The thing about the blood is that it makes you transform regardless of whether there is a curse or not. Like, beasthood is not necessarily like the curse. What is the curse is like the blood is going bad. It's what's making people. You can see in the introductory FMV, there's the Yharnamite who's held at gunpoint, and he's got this like rotting eye. And that's the same pattern you see on the eye of the blood drunk hunter, and it's the same pattern you see on the cracked sun that is in the nightmare. So it's like this is the curse of cause, and it's like it's making people's blood go foul essentially, which might actually be like kind of causing ashen blood. But regardless of that, like messing with old blood always did cause people to transform, cause sort of just making it worse. The curse of cause seems to actually be the blood drunkenness, like the sort of gradual like loss of sanity that comes with that. So she's sort of exacerbating this problem, but like I said, it's actually extremely confusing because there's so many different curses.
Maybe in the future we can do an episode on the different curses.
Okay.
Because I find it really interesting, like you said, the result seems to be kind of the same. You turn into
Yeah.
a beast,
Yeah.
but the way you get there may be different for like every faction.
I mean, if we lay it out, like, okay, so the way that like the transformations and everything work is like if you have old blood in your system, it makes your body start to change. And what you change into is determined kind of by you. It's determined by like your essence essentially. It sort of opens you up, and then whether you become like a bloodthirsty sort of savage beast or an enlightened kind of celestial being is down to who you are. It's down to like how enlightened you are. It's down to how much control you have, things like that. So that's there regardless of cause, but what cause seems to have done is she has made people's blood also go bad. So they're starting to lose their humanity, so it makes them more likely to turn into a beast. I think that's sort of how it works.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Thank you, Sophie.
thank you, Sen.
Now, in what, where, why, we usually have three sections: what, where,
Hmm.
and why.
Yeah,
But here I added an extra section.
yeah, which you didn't even tell me this was what, where, why. Did you even know this was what, where, why, or did you decide like 20 minutes in? Because that's the
No,
impression I'm
I have
getting
an
from you.
outline of them. I've been preparing this outline for weeks.
Do I get an outline?
Oh my god, I forgot to send you the outline,
Yeah,
didn't
you
I?
did. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Boop, boop, boop. There you go. Look, you have an
Thank you.
outline now.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's really
Everything
useful.
makes sense.
37 minutes in. Yeah.
So,
I'm not reading it.
as I was saying, there's an extra section here called How? How does the ashen blood spread?
Ashen blood was spread, I think, as we discussed, not that long ago. Ashen blood seems to have been introduced to Old Yharnam through their abuse of beast blood.
No, that's not what I mean, Sophie. What I mean is, if I have ashen blood,
Right. Okay.
how can you catch it from me?
You'd hold me down and vomit on me.
Oh my god. Thank you, Sophie.
Thank you, Sin.
And what measures can one take to avoid the ashen blood?
You can wear armor that's got high poison resist.
Okay.
So maybe like the white church set.
Okay.
Pop some of that on. You can, of course, take the antidote. That would
Mm-hmm.
certainly help. Carry a torch. It'll scare off beasts.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Not move to Old Yharnam?
maybe if you move to Old Yharnam, they'd just like accept you. Because that's how animals here work. Because like
Aww.
no, if you like walk into a place and the animals don't recognize you, they get very aggressive and defensive. If they see you every day, though, they just realize that you're just part of the environment. So like,
Okay.
there's all these birds around here that will attack people, but not me, because they see me as like, oh, that's this person just lives here.
Aww.
But then if like someone comes to visit, they're like, what the, and they start like cawing and swooping. Like you don't belong here.
So that would be a really cool mechanic for Old Yharnam. Like if you go through it a few times without attacking anything, they accept you.
That's how I thought it was going to work.
Oh.
Because Jira's like, don't hurt the beast. And I thought, okay, if I join Jira, they won't attack me. And I walked down and they attacked me.
Yeah.
You know what game does that properly?
What?
Dark Souls 2.
What? How?
If you join the Rat Covenant, the enemies in the rat areas won't attack you.
What about the Royal Red Authority?
Well, yeah, the boss is different, but like,
Okay, I hope in Elden Ring they have a thing where if you side with someone, like even the bosses don't attack you. They're like, go right ahead, take the shard. You're one of us.
well, the Royal Rat Authority is like it's like the Rat King's test. He's like, can you defeat this to prove that you are worthy of being a rat? Like that's why he's doing it.
Oh my god, it's just like Reborn.
Yes.
You have to prove to Reborn that you can do these things
Yeah,
and be
yeah.
the next 10th generation mafia boss.
10th generation rat.
Thank you, Sophie.
The first time that happened to me, I thought the AI was broken because I went to Doors of Pharos and nothing attacked me. And I'm like, oh,
Aw.
what have I done? And then it's like, oh, it's because I'm a rat. Okay.
Sophie, let
Yes,
me ask you one last question in the how category.
certainly.
How well do you think the government of Old Yharnam handled the Ashen Blood epidemic?
Well, I feel like it wasn't really a local issue because it really came from like above. It was like the Healing Church's fault. So, I mean, if you look at Old Yharnam, like they've kind of rebuilt a society. Like they're all going to church and like singing and worshipping like a giant
Mhm.
corpse and stuff. So, like, I feel like they did a decent job rebuilding.
Yeah, actually.
Yeah, yeah. They're just chilling. They're just sleeping all day.
Oh my god, that's the dream.
Yeah,
It's true, it does seem to be very relaxed.
yeah. They're just ignoring you.
Yeah. Thank you, Sophie.
Thank you, Sin.
Now let's move on to why.
Wasn't that the last one? Wasn't How last?
No, no, I added how before the why. If you looked at the outline which I sent you. So, Sophie,
Yes, Sin.
the antidote can be bought from Bath Messengers after we
Yes.
defeat the Cleric Beast and acquire the Sword Hunter badge.
Yes.
What relationship does the Cleric Beast and Sword Hunter badge have with the Ashen Blood?
Well, it's because it's healing church medicine. So if you're a hunter, you want to have antidote on you.
Okay, thank you. What relationship do beast blood pellets have to the Ashen Blood?
Well, mechanically none. Um, but like it's fairly obvious that the church was seeding beast blood in Old Yharnam. So presumably, like I guess like long-term beast blood use led to Ashen blood, or maybe it was like some other kind of drug that predated beast blood pellets that had a poisonous effect to it. Because one of the things about poison is like the way you add poison to a weapon is you use what's called dirty blood gemstones. So there's something about like blood that's dirty is poisonous. So that makes me think of like, well, ashen blood is sort of like dirty blood. I don't know why it was called ashen blood. Is the thing like it's an evocative name. It could mean like it could refer to the color of the blood because the blood starved beast's blood is like it's not red, and
Hmm.
like the vomiting beast patients like their blood's not. You know, they just vomit purple slime on you basically, but like
Hmm.
the what I was thinking though is like, does it mean like ash? It's like got the texture of ash to it. It's like all sort of like coagulated and like it dried up.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because if you think of the blood-starved beast when it does its like poison aura, it's like particles around it. It's not necessarily like the blood is pouring out of it. It
Hmm.
doesn't seem like it's. It seems like the blood has almost turned to powder, which is sort of like ash. So
Hmm.
yeah,
Thank you, Sophie.
thank you, Sam.
So, I've read a lot of different theories on this,
Mm-hmm.
but you said that it's likely the healing church messing with people's blood that caused the Ashen blood. And how exactly did they mess with people's blood? Like, what procedures did they use?
Well, from what we can tell, they basically just gave everyone beast blood, in pellet form.
Because I also heard theories that were like they put something in the water.
It's possible, yeah, because there is like there's a river that runs through Old Yharnam. It's actually it's a really large river, but you very rarely see it because of basically the angle the camera's on. But yeah, there's a massive river running through Old Yharnam. So like I've heard a lot, like yeah, like maybe they did something to the water.
Are there any other ways you can think of?
So that's a good example of the whole like it's up to interpretation, but the story still logically makes sense. Like these aren't actually completely oppositional things. So like the church poisoned Old Yharnam is as far as like the mechanics of the narrative go, like that's what happened. The church poisoned Old Yharnam, that's why they turned into beasts. But what's left open is like exactly how they did it, and it's also like exactly what it was like when that happened. Because if you look at Old Yharnam, like the beasts, like they did used to be people, and you see them in houses, and it's like, oh, this probably is actually where they lived, and you can start putting together like, oh, this there's actually like these beasts here are actually a family. They're not just like monsters in a video game. There's actually like, yep, there's the big female one, so it's probably the mother, and then there's like it's like another one here, and you can sort of line it all up, and like you can also see there's one house that's there's like a beast patient that is it's like one of the big female ones, and it's above a corpse, and the corpse has a blood tinged gemstone on it, and then there's two other little beasts like outside that room, and it's like, is this a family where
Hmm.
like the two beasts outside is that the kids, and then the female beast patient is the mother, and she's killed the father who didn't transform, and did he not transform because his blood was very strong, hence the blood tinged gemstone? It's like these little like vignettes, and another one I mentioned is like the way the female beast patients don't react to the torch. The corpse that you find the torch in Old Yharnam on, there's two female beast patients nearby. So you can actually see, oh, okay, did the hunter try scaring them off with the torch and it didn't work?
Hmm.
Yeah, there's all these little, like, and like the exact nature of like the ritual that's going on where the beasts are all like, you're told, okay, these are savage animals, but when you go to Old Yharnam, you can see, like, very clearly the beasts are all, it's all organized. They're all standing around in a big circle and they're singing this weird beast hymn. And there's
Hmm.
clearly another beast that's actually leading the congregation. So clearly they're not completely instinctive animals. Like there's some intelligence operating.
Hmm.
but it's just not something that we recognize. So there's all this stuff going on. Like, that's the stuff that's interesting. That's the, like, open to interpretation elements of it. And it's why we can do that Bloodborne story in 5 minutes thing, because the actual story of Bloodborne, in terms of like the mechanics of like who does what, when, and why, and what happens, is like pretty basic. But all the interesting stuff is like the implications of it and where it's going and what it's engaging with.
Thank you, Sophie.
Thank you, Sin.
And one last question. Is there a way to reverse the effects caused by the Ashen blood, like the transformations, for example?
Well, this is the problem is like the suspicious beggar,
Mm-hmm.
who I just treat as an anomaly who doesn't make any sense. But like
Okay.
the
Yeah.
suspicious beggar, he can turn back and forth from what we can tell.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he'll turn into a beast if he kills you or you like leave the area. When you come back, he's human again, but he'll transform when he sees you. And like you're also keeping in mind, like, Gascoigne turns mid-fight. If you go back to fight Gascoigne, he's human again, but at the same time, like, you have to say certain things are just video game logic. Like,
Mm-hmm.
Gascoigne does that because he's a two-phase boss fight. Like, that's why he does it.
Yeah.
The thing about beast transformation is, like, it's not necessarily like, oh, physically you turned into something. It's like your mind snapped. Like, your
Mm-hmm.
mind sort of decayed. Like, Ludwig almost does it.
Mm.
Because when you encounter Ludwig,
Yeah.
he is like, he's got two heads for a reason. The first phase is the first head, it's the mouth. When you kill the mouth head, Ludwig comes back. Like Ludwig the person comes back. The body doesn't change, but he's like mentally Ludwig again. So like, but again, that's not, it's really not clear because this is some weird nightmare place, and like you have like Lawrence, even though he's like, it specifies like his memory is gone. But his memory's gone, but he has the instinct to like look for his memory. So even like recognizably the person he was has completely disappeared. When he sees his skull, he freaks out, and like Gascoigne responds to the music box when he is a beast. So like remnants of the person remain, but you can't really go back. It's just like you've snapped, like you've broken, like your brain has sort of like broken.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. It does seem like if you do go back with Ludwig and Gascoigne
Yeah.
as examples,
Yeah.
you don't really turn back into a human.
No.
Something like in your mind goes back to, oh yeah, this is who I am, what's happening type deal.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then for Gascoigne it reverts back to beasthood.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
Ludwig, well, we don't know, it's a nightmare.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. Thank you, Sophie.
Thank you, Sin.
And Sophie, do you have anything else to add about the Ashen Blood?
No, I think we pretty much covered Ashen Blood. It's one of those things that's like, I guess because they call it Ashen Blood, people got a little obsessed with like, what does it mean? And like, I think it's just a name for a disease. It's like Pale Blood Sky. It's just like an evocative name for something. Yeah. It's not like Resident Evil where there's like the T virus and the G virus and the TG virus and all this like virus after virus after virus. It's just like everyone got sick and we called it Ashen Blood.
Sophie, do the outro.
That was the Snake Covenant episode 257, Ashen Blood, thanks to our patrons.
Woo!
Woo!
And Sophie, if people want to find more Ashen Blood, where can they go?
They can go to Old Yharnam and have a woman vomit on them.
Thank you, Sophie.
Thank you, Sen.
And thank you everyone for listening. And see y'all next time.
Bye.
Bye!